took an outsider to unite the United States.
The founding father whose bold vision built a nation. A reckless genius. His enemies were the most powerful men in America. His quest for honor defined him and destroyed him.
The duel cannot be avoided.
Alexander Hamilton.
During the 1700s, the American Revolution brought about freedom, liberty, and independence. Alexander Hamilton took a stand in history by helping create a new independent nation from the ground up, which deeply impacted the American Revolution. He acted as a key player in the war as Washington's assistant and aided the Founding Fathers in their quest to create a new United States Constitution. After the Revolution, Washington named Hamilton as the first Secretary of Treasury. In this position, Hamilton founded the National Bank and established many of the economic principles of the United States, which are still in effect today. As a result of Hamilton's stand in the Revolutionary War and his work as Secretary of Treasury, America has a stable financial basis, liberties, and freedom for all.
Born illegitimate to a single mother, his father abandoned the family when he was age 10, he was orphaned at age 11, he had very little formal education as a child, and yet working for some of the merchants in the West Indies, he so impressed them that they literally passed the hat to raise money to send him to New York to get a decent education. Particularly appropriate for Hamilton to be on the currency because he founded the currency.
One way Hamilton took a stand in history was the large part he played in the war tactics and decisions made leading up to the creation of the government we have today. He was a key messenger for Washington and a captain in the war. Being Washington's right-hand man, Hamilton was very well known for his incredible affinity for writing. His first published political piece was after the Boston Tea Party in the New York Journal, which was about the destruction of the tea in Boston and stated that it was both necessary and political. Writing became his way of expressing his thoughts and opinions. He was exceptionally good at public speaking and getting people to rally behind him and support him in his cause. He trained alongside General Washington's troops in Long Island. He quickly won the favoritism and affection of the general with his dedication and intelligence. In March of 1776, he joined the New York Artillery and was given the title of Captain of the Provincial Company of Artillery, and recommended for an officer's commission by General Alexander McDowell. In February 1781, Hamilton quit his job as aide-de-camp because he loathed his desk job. Even though Hamilton had Washington's endowment, he still craved the glory of the fight. He constantly pushed Washington to give him a command, and when he refused, Hamilton provoked him. His insightfulness and ability to handle an enormous workload quickly earned him a spot as Washington's main advisor. The experience helped him learn about the conditions of America's military and financial condition. In 1778, he wrote a report about reorganizing the army, kicking off his career in politics. He dreamed of building a modern nation which could rival with Europe commercially and culturally, much like George Washington. He was a very conscientious and systematic leader. He made sure his troops were fed, clothed, and paid. Hamilton also led the Battle of Yorktown, the final battle in the American Revolution, to victory and helped America gain its independence. Alexander Hamilton stood up against the British monarchy and fought for his dream of a new, free, and independent nation.
Another example in history of Hamilton standing up for what he believes in is represented in his contribution in the Constitution and the Federalist Papers. He wrote the Federalist Papers along with James Madison and John Jay, under the collective name Publius, and the Constitution with their founding fathers. Hamilton once said, "The sacred right of mankind are not to be rummaged, for among old parchments and musty records they are written as a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature, by the hand of divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power." The Federalist Papers were a series of 85 essays that appeared between October of 1787 and 1788, promoting the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. Alexander Hamilton stood up for his beliefs in a government where power is split between the states and national governing parties. Hamilton created the Federalist Papers in support of his beliefs. As resistance, Madison and Jefferson created the Jefferson's Republicans, better known as the Democratic Republican Party. Over time, the differences and rivalry between the two groups escalated. He believed everyone should have the basic freedoms of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and wrote 51 essays in the Federalist Papers demonstrating the depths of his values.
As the Secretary of Treasury, Hamilton stood up in history and made many influential changes, such as establishing the First National Bank. In February 1791, Washington was contemplating whether or not to sign the bill creating the National Bank. As a result, members of the cabinet were invited to express their opinions on the topic. In retaliation, on February 15th, the Secretary of State, Jefferson, also delivered a bill of opinions to the general, advising him to refuse such expansion of federal power. Hamilton once again fought back with his opinion on February 23, 1791. Eventually, Washington submitted to his wishes and approved the bill, creating the first bank of the United States. Hamilton once said,
National debt, if it's not excessive, will be a national blessing. It will be the powerful cement of our union.
Hamilton believed the National Bank was essential to the country's stability and improving our debt. The South, however, was completely against the National Bank. They considered Hamilton's policy the curse of all curses, ensuring all American children would be born with debt. Their spokesperson for the South was Thomas Jefferson. He had many political debates with Hamilton on this matter. The first tax created by the new federal government was the whiskey tax. It resulted in the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794. Additionally, Hamilton unveiled his infamous report of manufactures. He proposed that the government provide aid to still developing industries through bounties and protective tariffs. The report only proved to further agitate the Republicans, who felt it would cause bias of the national government against agriculture. Subsequently, on September 11, 1789, Hamilton proposed the federal government buy all outstanding state-issued secretaries, such as the Massachusetts Consolidation notes purchased by Abigail Adams. After the decisions, he was widely unpopular. However, he stood steadfast by his beliefs, and it turned out to be incredibly successful.
I'm here today to talk about the impact of the First National Bank on our economy. And the reason I mentioned that ours is a federally chartered bank is that's what Alexander Hamilton initiated. In the late 1790s, or the early 1790s actually, he was a real advocate for a national bank. And he felt that was important for multiple reasons. One of them was that each of the states, after the Revolutionary War, had a lot of debt, and they're having real trouble paying off that debt, and their currency wasn't worth as much. And each state was issuing its own currency, which really made it cumbersome to have trade between the states. So Hamilton's idea was to centralize a national bank, to have both government people and private citizens as part of it, and to issue bonds and then pay off the state's debt. There's a lot of controversy about that because a number of people, Thomas Jefferson among them, was concerned that it would centralize way too much power in the federal government. But in the end, Hamilton's plan went forward and was very successful because they issued debt, paid down the state's obligations, and started printing money from a central spot. So it really helped facilitate the development of trade after the Revolutionary War. And that bank was chartered for 20 years, and it had a lot of success during that period. Unfortunately, the charter was not renewed, and it wasn't until the early 1900s that it was put back in place. But it was very successful during its time and had a real positive impact on the country.
I'm past patiently waiting, I'm passionately smashing every expectation, every action's an act of creation.
Alexander Hamilton took a stand in history by helping write the Federalist Papers and the Constitution, his work with Washington, and as the Secretary of Treasury. He helped build an independent nation based on freedom and liberty.
The lasting historical impact of Alexander Hamilton is his financial program. Hamilton proposed an economic program which brought a time of stability and prosperity. It consisted of 4 parts: funding, assumption, exercise law, and a national bank. He also made a huge impact when he helped write the Constitution. He gave a 5-hour speech in which he presented his plan for an effective national government. As one of the founding fathers and the first Secretary of Treasury, that is how Hamilton played an effective part both during and after the American Revolution.
Not gonna wait, not shut.